everyone. Welcome to this episode of Chrysalis on the Couch. I'm here today with Tina, Ellie and Cila, and we're going to be talking about TV programs and social awareness. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, and do remember to like and to subscribe to our channel. And there's many more episodes as well that you can catch on our channel as well. So without further ado, let's all take a little moment to just introduce ourselves more. So my name is Lorna Cordwell. I'm a tutor at Chrysalis. I've been with Chrysalis for many years now, and love what I do. I'm also a practitioner. I'm in private practice as a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist, and very much enjoy that as well. Cila, over to you.
Hi, my name is Cila. I'm a year one tutor at Chrysalis, very much enjoying that. And I'm also a clinical psychotherapist working in private practice, in private clinic. I also practice hypnotherapy as and when it's required. And going back to teaching, so I'm still new. I'm taking year one students through my first year, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's an amazing experience being at Chrysalis.
Ellie, over to you.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I am the social media manager for Chrysalis courses and Chrysalis not-for-profit. Kind of newer to the company, but I'm absolutely loving it. And I'm happy to be joining this discussion today.
Thank you. And Tina, welcome, and welcome to Chrysalis as well.
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Tina Robinson, and I'm new to Chrysalis. I'm a first year student for hypnotherapy and counselling, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I've got a passion for the subconscious, have done for many years, and I've always been drawn to hypnotherapy and anything that, you know, personally develops us. And I'm really happy to be here today because this is a subject that's very close to my heart.
Okay, great. Well, Tina, that's great to hear that this is a subject that's close to your heart. And I wonder if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about, you know, what interested you to come on board today.
Well, in terms of a lot of TV programs that are out at the moment, I've noticed so many that are coming to our screens are adaptations of something that happened sort of 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And some of the things I've actually lived through, so I remember them. So then watching them all over again is really interesting to me because it's invoking memories within me that I had back then, which is really relevant now. But also I think it's great for people today, children of today that probably didn't live through that are seeing this, and hopefully it's generating something within them that will get them talking, or maybe change their perception, because obviously we may have lived through it. So we, if we're a bit older, we might understand and have empathy and compassion, but you know, some people of today may not have. So I think there's so much about it at the moment. It's really a good time to watch certain TV shows.
Yeah, and that's, I feel very much the same as what you're saying here, Tina. So, you know, interesting as you're talking, the phrase that comes to me is "lest we forget," which is often a phrase that is, you know, that is associated with, for example, you know, sort of times of war and so on, and let's not forget what people had to do, and let's try to remember not to get into this situation again in the future. But yeah, so some programs that have recently been on TV from events like, you know, sort of 30, 40 years ago, something like that, or less, but actually, you know, can really bring home. I mean, I certainly felt that when I was watching It's a Sin, that, you know, that time period that the programme is in was a time period where I had just moved to London, so, you know, was going out a lot, had a lot of gay friends, and you know, there was just so, you know, such a social scene at that time. and then that social scene, this tragedy, just like swept through it, and there was just so much fear, and I think the program really brought that across. So is that the kind of thing that you're relating to?
It is, yeah. I remember Live Aid, and Freddie Mercury, Elton John, George Michael, people like that, people that I really loved. I was such a Wham fan, and so I was drawn to watch it, even though I was young, probably didn't really understand the extent of what was going on. It really touched my heart back then, because the last thing I wanted was anybody that I knew to die of something that was so new that people didn't really know much about. And it was just an awful time, I think, because everybody had so much fear of this new virus, and it was sweeping through the gay community, and it was just tragic, really. And there was just so much not misinformation, because I don't think that was a big thing back then, but it's certainly the unknown, and I think that created a lot of fear.
Yeah, it must have done. It absolutely must have done. And fear among people who were at such a sort of vibrant stage of life. It's like I am having such fun and finding myself, and then crash. So Ellie, you were talking earlier about a different type of social awareness that we can gain from TV, and some programs that you can remember really hit home for you.
Yeah, there is one in particular that I used to watch with my mom back in the US when I lived there, called Parenthood, and it was this just sort of long program about this huge family and all the different members in it, starting from the mom and dad, and then their kids and their children beneath that. And one of the grandchildren had, at the very beginning of the series, been diagnosed with Asperger's and on the autism spectrum. So it was really interesting to see the family sort of start to deal with that, learn to deal with that, learn how to talk with him about it, and sort of help him to see that it wasn't weakness, that these were strengths that he had, and sort of flip that narrative about it as a neurodivergent child, and teach him to be proud of it, and just to let people know when interacting with him, hi, I have Asperger's, I'm a little different. I need you to say things to me like this, and seeing how the whole family sort of learned to interact with him in a way that was really peaceful and fruitful. And so I remember watching that series with my mom, and a lot of it was just very emotional, but it sort of made us start to think about a specific person in our family who we thought might have really similar characteristics in the way that they were acting. And then later on in the series, this child that has Asperger's starts to be really interested in photography, and starts to hang out with this guy who's a photographer who happens to be dating his aunt. And at first, Max, the child's dad, feels a little uncomfortable with it, and then he decides it's fine, but I just want to let this man know my child has Asperger's. Here's a book about it. I want you to just know how to interact with him. And in reading it, the man starts to identify a lot within himself that seems to be also autism, and sort of goes through that on his own, realizing I have autism and this has affected every relationship in my life. And seeing that as an adult was really interesting. And definitely there have been people in my family's lives that have since sort of realized that about themselves, that they might have autism and are currently seeking a diagnosis with that. So that's been really interesting. And another series, which is not a drama series, but a documentary series called Love on the Spectrum. I discovered it maybe sometime within the last year. It might have been last summer that it came out. And then the next season has just come out, which I haven't started yet. But it's an Australian documentary, and they're talking about Asperger's, and it's people who have Asperger's who are saying, I'm neurodivergent, but I want a life like a neurotypical person. I want to have love. I want to have autonomy and live away from my parents. I want to have a job and be able to provide, and I want to have a family. And they're all varying degrees of, high functioning neurodivergent. And it was really heartwarming and heartbreaking just to see these people speak in their own words about how much they want connection with people, and how difficult it is for them, but seeing them struggle through that and learn to sort of self-regulate in certain circumstances, certain situations, and to go after what they want and keep going and find someone that they actually are really compatible with. So that has been really amazing for me. And also at the same time, I have some adult friends who have recently been diagnosed with autism, in their mid to late 20s. And it's been really helpful for me sort of seeing these shows and maybe having people in my family who are presenting that way as well. And knowing how to sort of interact with them in a way that is beneficial to both of us. It's giving me a little bit more patience and understanding. And really, it's not about them. It's about how I am giving someone the opportunity to just freely be themselves, and learning how to connect with them on a deeper level. So
and thank you for mentioning those programs. They sound really valuable, and I think that this is one of the themes which for me is exactly what this episode is about. Is you're talking about a certain group of people who may or may not have a certain diagnosis there, but I think that the common across the board is people being able to to put across, to gain greater understanding of their experience, whether that is their experience of a tragedy or a disaster, or their experience as how they feel within themselves. And and I think that the value of such programs is being able to do that effectively, so that it does really resonate with people. And as you say, one of the things that you have picked up from that program is actually, well, maybe there are some common experiences here between how people are being portrayed by actors, or being able to portray themselves in documentaries, and people around you, and or even ourselves. It's like well, I've had that kind of common experience. And I mean, Cila, interestingly, when we started chatting today, you were talking about something on the other side of things, if you like, weren't you? It's like, well, sometimes TV can go in the other direction and provide, show us an experience which we can start to think, should this be my experience? So should I be behaving, thinking, and so on like this? Is this how people actually are? And some of the reality TV programs, for example, that are not always reality TV, they're a version of reality, if you like. So so what's your thoughts around this?
Am I? Okay, so I actually stopped watching television programs, daytime TV, when reality TV programs have become popular. And that was purely because I found it personally that I was rejecting the idea of using the suffering of human beings as they are responding to difficult situations, using that as an entertainment.
Mhm.
So it brought it to my self-awareness that I found that completely, for me, it was unacceptable, and as a result, I just stopped watching TV, daytime TV in total.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting there that you use the word suffering, because you know, the program that I was talking about earlier, you know, It's a Sin, and another one that comes to my mind is Anne, which is a documentary about a woman who is seeking justice for her son who was killed in the Hillsborough disaster, a football disaster. But you know, but they're, you know, really able to, you know, to empathize, to understand people's suffering, which is very, very carefully and compassionately portrayed on screen. But you're talking about something different here, aren't you? You're talking about people who are who are what, you know, it's very important for them to succeed in something, to feel that they need to be a certain way. It's, you know, it's a for TV rather than TV for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these people on reality TV programs, they were basically landed in certain situations. Some situations were created for them in order for their behavior to be examined and researched through the lens. And but that's one thing of, in my eyes, it's one thing of doing research, but that's another thing of how the research is done.
Yeah.
So once that research is made publicly available, and then it's no longer research in my eyes.
Yeah.
So I walked away from it. I voted with my feet, and I decided that that's not for me. That brought my self-awareness to my own attention as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, Cila, that I agree with you. Ever since reality TV came out, when it first came out, I was intrigued. I watched some of it and then thought, oh, this is not good, because I was watching these personalities that were inside an environment and watching the demise of them and watching their mental health be so affected, and I felt powerless. And I couldn't believe that it was getting so much airtime, as well as it was in the news, it was on the TV, it was on TV shows. And
watching mental health decline.
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
And it's interesting as well, I think, that there's also been some interesting kind of crossover programs there. So, for example, you know, the young woman, Nikki, who sadly lost her life to anorexia. Nikki first came to public awareness through Big Brother.
Yeah.
So, you know, was there on the reality TV program and very, very popular contestant. And then there was a documentary about her later on and how she struggled with her mental health. And you know, and actually, you know, and eventually very sadly lost that struggle. Another one that springs to mind was the program about Jessie from
I watched that.
you know, again, sort of, you know, hugely successful as a singer in the girl group, which name escapes me at the moment.
Yes, I know the group, but I can't remember either.
I know the group. Girls Aloud?
No, it was one from. It'll come to one of us.
I'll let it come. We'll put out a slight self-hypnotic suggestion here that this name will come to us. Yeah.
Little Mix.
There it was.
There we go.
And then later on a documentary about about her struggles with mental health, and how she just felt so overwhelmed by comments on social media, and and so on, and Cila, that's a part of what you were talking about, isn't it? That how people don't just watch those programs, they comment on the people who are on those programs as well. And it can be all too easy for any of us to write something on social media that can then, be read by somebody as desperately hurtful.
Are those ones who commenting, I'd be interested in to see their self-awareness.
Yeah.
Well, yes, indeed. But it's I think there needs to be actually a lot more good research into into how we respond when we haven't got the person in front of us and there's no comeback, and how we respond when other people agree with us, and how that can sort of move into a huge wave of negativity. And we see it in all kinds of platforms, even ones of professionals, and even sometimes from people in the therapy community as well. So but Tina, you were talking earlier about another program.
Was it the staircase? Was it that one?
Yeah, the staircase.
Yeah, that's recently come out on Netflix. Was it Netflix? Oh, I think it's another platform, but the original documentary that came out years ago, where you can watch the real the real people, and the new one that I've watched is The Staircase. It's played by Colin Firth and Toni Collette. Really, really good story where a woman, his wife, is murdered and he's convicted because sadly there was nobody else present. So he was the obvious person who they assumed killed him, but he claimed his innocence for the whole time. He was released, he was put back in. And it was a hard watch. It was, because to know that this really happened and to a woman, but I don't want to give it away because it really is worth watching. Yeah. But I was quite sad at the end. Just like, oh, okay. Just right.
Yeah, and then I mean, these kind of programs do really tap into our emotions, don't they? Which I guess is an important, it's an important aspect of any creativity anyway. But I think in terms of being able to empathize, or really feel what somebody must be going through in the moment, and some of the historical TV that we've spoken about can definitely do that, to bring forward all kinds of emotions. So I don't know whether it necessarily changes anything. I mean, in terms of social awareness, does it actually change anything? Does it sort of compel people to act, or does it just very often kind of leave us with a feeling of like, well, life isn't fair, things do happen badly, things are a struggle, nothing is going to be easy, and not only what we know would be difficult, but also all of the fallout from that.
If I may add, there was a family in my one of my neighbours, a foreign family, really lovely, really sweet mother, and her daughter was about to go to school, and she was a little bit worried about how she's going to be fitting in within the society of the school, because she didn't understand the school system, she didn't understand what's expected from the mothers, etc. So I then remembered watching this Netflix series of what was it called? I think Motherhood, one of those. I don't know if you've seen. So I recommended her to watch it. She was really, really anxious at the beginning. And then, so she watched it. A week later, she comes down, literally floating down the stairs. And said, oh, well, that can easily be done. Because she could identify herself with one of the characters. And then she said, well, if that character can actually get through it all, then she'll fly through. She just sails through the whole thing. So this Motherhood was about dinosaur. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's good. Very funny.
Yes, it was about some mothers who take their kids to school, and it's all about the school run and what's expected from mothers. And each character is playing a different human character. There's one who's like the queen bee, and she's a leader, and then there's another one who's the anxious mother who's constantly looking for childcare, and then all the rest of it. And they're all really cool characters. And what it brought to awareness was that how different every single mother is, and then regardless of who you are and regardless of what character you are, you will get through it one way or another. And it was really interesting to see how this lady responded to watching the series at the end, and how it put her anxiety to rest.
That's
just
great.
By seeing it.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that's and yes, that really highlights, doesn't it, how a really good, well-made, well thought through and well acted program can actually really assist us in understanding what other people's experiences.
Yeah.
And even if even if it is a work of fiction, then perhaps ultimately this is one of the reasons for and the popularity of TV programs is that they are presenting something to us which allows us to connect. And some programs we can connect with more than others depending on our circumstances and our needs. And so so just like your neighbor was really able to connect with that program because it was an experience that she was about to have and she didn't know how that was going to be. Certainly programs can help us to connect with really strong emotions, grief, fear, frustration, and anger, and hopefully joyfulness, and and compassion and understanding as well. Anybody got any views?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say you've already definitely touched on it, but I do think what is so powerful about TV shows and what is on the TV now is that they do have a lot of power because people watch and people talk about it. And I think it can be really powerful when we identify ourselves in someone or identify something that we're going through in someone that we're seeing on a screen. But also when we can sort of identify someone else that we know. And then you get to see sort of that behind the scenes of what they might going through or what they might be going through. And I think it fosters empathy, which I think is so important. And learning to be a more empathetic person. I feel like we've all been through something sort of collectively over these last few years with the pandemic. And I feel like that's brought sort of a sense of community, at least with me and the people that I know in my life, that we've all been through a really hard time, but we've also been through really different hard times and dealing with different things during the pandemic that have, exacerbated the pain that we've been going through or the stress and anxiety. And so I find it really refreshing and encouraging to be engaged in empathy when watching TV and sort of bringing that into my own life. And I feel that it does sometimes take real effort to try to see the other side. I haven't seen The Staircase, so I don't know what happens, but in other series that I've watched where you sort of see the other side and it might be a person that you would say, oh, I could never understand why this person could have done that. but then you do see the other side, and you see maybe not an excuse, but you might see sort of a reasoning, and kind of opens up the door for empathy, which doesn't mean that you're just let yourself get walked all over, but it just means engaging with people in a deeper way. And so there is that power in television series, whether it's documentary or drama, or sometimes, you know, reality TV. I don't watch reality TV myself either. I don't enjoy it. I don't like to see people basically just used for entertainment. It makes me really severely uncomfortable. So I steer clear of it. But I do like to watch really well thought out dramas and sometimes documentaries.
Well, one comes to mind. I'm sorry for interrupting. One comes to mind. Don't know if you've seen Silver Line. Has anybody seen it? I can't remember the name of the actors. Please excuse me for that. I'm terrible with names. But so it's about this couple. This guy, the guy's bipolar. The girl is borderline. They both have personality disorders. They both have severe mental health issues, where they're both mentally ill, and their struggle, how they get together, and then how they get together through getting ready for a dance contest. And
Silver Linings Playbook.
Silver Lining. Have you seen it?
Yeah, the Silver Linings Playbook. Yeah.
Bradley Cooper. One of those. Yeah.
And Jennifer Lawrence, I think.
Yes.
Is it? Yes, one of those. Yeah. Sorry, I'm terrible with it.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing. We were watching it together with a group of friends, and what I was most amazed of is some of my friends were like, could identify some of their mates. And oh, she's like this, and then oh, he's like that. And I was thinking, oh my God, these people have severe mental illnesses. But for me, what was really interesting is I was very happy to see such a great movie made out of these people having these very debilitating mental illnesses, and how they struggle through life, and but how they actually make it. And what I really liked is for people to actually being able to identify certain behavior patterns that they can see on their own friends. And now, after watching this movie, we had this great discussion about it, and then as certain behavior patterns were identified, then people could actually understand what it is, and they stop judging, which was, to me, it was a revelation. It was absolutely wonderful to see.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Sorry, Lorna. I just wanted to touch on something Kelly was saying about the parenthood and love on the spectrum, because what I really like at the moment is there's so much television that is bringing awareness to people with autism or people who are on the spectrum, and that I think is great, because it's making it more acceptable. Not that it wasn't, you know, I've got a brother who's autistic and a nephew who's autistic and a cousin who's autistic. There's quite a lot of autism in our family, and it's just wonderful that my 12-year-old nephew, who is growing up in a world where he is accepted, where his differences isn't seen as abnormal, different, and that just, you know, it makes me really happy to know that he doesn't feel different. Whereas my brother, who is obviously a lot older, not his son, my nephew is my sister's son, but my older brother, who recently was diagnosed, similar to your story, Ellie, that when he was younger, he did a lot of masking because we didn't know. And to know that he must have been suffering because he couldn't be his authentic self, he just couldn't be who he truly is, that does break my heart. But it's just really good now that there's so much good TV on, that it's raising awareness, like the Silver Linings Playbook and your shows that you're talking about, Ellie. So yeah, I just want to say I'm glad about it.
I'd completely agree with that, Tina, and I think that you know, there's certainly more to do there, more to do in that direction for the awareness of, of mental issues that people experience. It doesn't surprise me at all, Cila, that that friends are saying it's like, oh, but that's like me, or that's like, that's no, sorry, that's like that friend. So because obviously, we all share similar characteristics and behaviors and so on. It's just sometimes we find those characteristics or behaviors going into a more extreme direction, and then they become a problem for us. And how we can interact with others. But there's nothing unique about mental health or mental illness. There isn't really a division. It's a range, isn't it? So we can all identify to a certain extent with others who are in distress when we are actually in periods of distress. We don't necessarily behave rationally or think rationally or any of those things. Just being able to recognize not just the differences, but the similarities between all of us and our experiences as well. I'm just aware of the time. I just wanted to bring up, one last thing is that, Ellie, you mentioned the pandemic, and I don't know if you found the same thing, Cila, as a therapist, but actually I've worked with quite a few clients now who have recognized that the pandemic was a difficult period for them, but I don't think we have yet necessarily really connected with with what a difference it has made to all of our lives. And maybe there is a whole raft of TV programs that are in the making or need to be made about the experiences that we have had over the past few years, and specifically how that really affected some families, some people, in ways that we were getting snippets of on the news, but perhaps couldn't really, can't really imagine unless it was happening to us or happening to those around us. So I think that there's a whole lot to come there to help us to understand how that affected.
Yes.
We've run out of time, unfortunately. So often the case. I think that we have so much more to think about and to say on this. But I just want to say thank you to everybody here, and thank you for listening in to our episode today. So if you have enjoyed this episode, then do remember, please, to like and if you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, do subscribe. We have lots more episodes to come. And thank you so much for watching. And it's goodbye from us, but we hope to see you again at some point very soon. Bye.